Crimea, a land at the center of war. For years, Russia held it tight. But now something is changing. Ukrainian strikes are increasing. Russian defenses look stressed. Military analysts are asking one question. Is Russia losing control of Crimea? Or is this just the beginning of a bigger fight? Today, we break down what is really happening. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are discussing one of the most sensitive and strategic regions in the Ukraine war, Crimea. This peninsula has been at the center of global tension for years. Since its annexation in 2014, Russia has treated Crimea as a symbol of strength, a military hub, a political statement. But recent developments suggest the situation may be shifting. Ukraine has increased pressure through long-range strikes, drone attacks, and strategic messaging. These actions are not random. They are carefully planned. Analysts believe Ukraine is testing Russian defenses, measuring response times, and exposing weaknesses. Crimea is vital for Russia's Black Sea operations. It hosts naval bases, supply routes, and command centers. Any disruption here has ripple effects across the battlefield. At the same time, Russia continues to reinforce its positions. Air defenses, troop movements, and infrastructure repairs are ongoing. This creates a complex picture. One side pushing forward, the other trying to hold ground. In this video, we will not exaggerate. We will not speculate wildly. We will focus on confirmed trends, expert analysis, and strategic realities. The goal is simple: to understand whether Crimea is truly slipping from Russia's control, or whether this is another intense phase of a long war. Stay with us as we break it all down step by step. To understand today's situation, we must look at why Crimea matters so much. Geography comes first. Crimea sits between Eastern Europe and the Black Sea. Control of this region allows dominance over key shipping lanes, military access, and regional influence. For Russia, Crimea is more than territory. It is a strategic anchor. The Black Sea Fleet operates from here. Supplies move through it. Command structures depend on it. Losing stability in Crimea would complicate Russian operations far beyond the peninsula. For Ukraine, Crimea represents sovereignty, national identity, and security. Ukrainian leaders see it as occupied land. Any effort to challenge control there carries symbolic and strategic weight. That is why recent Ukrainian actions are significant. Instead of large ground offensives, Ukraine has focused on precision, long-range strikes, intelligence-driven targets. These aim to disrupt logistics rather than seize land immediately. Military experts describe this as shaping the battlefield, weakening systems before major moves. Russia has responded by reinforcing air defenses and limiting public information. This suggests concern, but concern does not equal collapse. Wars evolve in phases. Pressure builds gradually. Crimea today is under more stress than before. But stress alone does not decide outcomes. The real question is whether sustained pressure can change long-term control. That answer depends on resources, resolve, and time. One of the most visible changes around Crimea is the rise in long-range strikes. Drones, missiles, and sabotage operations have increased. These attacks often target infrastructure, fuel depots, radar systems, and naval assets. The goal is disruption, not spectacle. When logistics slow down, military effectiveness suffers. Ukraine has invested heavily in domestically produced drones. These systems are cheaper, harder to track, and easier to deploy. They allow Ukraine to strike deep without risking pilots. This changes the balance. Russia still maintains strong air defenses, but no system is perfect. Even limited penetration forces adjustments. More patrols, more resources, more strain. Each response costs time and money. At the same time, Russia continues to intercept many incoming threats. This is important to note. Crimea has not been defenseless. Russian systems still function. Repairs happen quickly. Messaging emphasizes control. This creates two parallel realities: tactical disruption on the ground, strategic confidence in official statements. Observers must separate damage from decisive change. A single strike does not equal loss of control, but repeated pressure can reshape priorities. Crimea is no longer a quiet rear area. It is becoming an active zone again. That shift alone matters, because attention follows danger, and danger changes decisions. Another critical factor is morale, not just of soldiers, but of civilians and administrators. Crimea has a mixed population. Years of integration efforts aim to normalize Russian control. Infrastructure projects, media messaging, tourism campaigns, all played a role. However, increased attacks disrupt this sense of normalcy. Air raid warnings, explosions, and restrictions affect daily life. Even if damage is limited, psychological impact matters. When people feel unsafe, confidence erodes. For military personnel, constant alerts increase fatigue. Systems must stay active. Crews remain on edge. Over time, this affects performance. Ukraine understands this dynamic. Pressure is designed to stretch resources, not overwhelm them instantly. Russia counters by tightening security and controlling information. This limits panic, but also reduces transparency. Outside observers rely on satellite data and indirect reports. This makes clear assessment difficult. Still, the pattern is visible. Crimea is no longer isolated from the war's intensity. It is feeling it directly. Morale is not collapsing, but it is being tested. History shows that prolonged testing changes outcomes. Not overnight, but gradually. Whether this leads to strategic shifts depends on how long pressure continues and how effectively each side adapts. War is as much about endurance as it is about firepower. International reactions also shape the Crimea question. Western governments watch developments closely. Any shift in control would have diplomatic consequences. For now, official positions remain cautious. Support for Ukraine continues through military aid and intelligence sharing, but direct involvement is avoided. This balance reflects concern over escalation. Crimea is sensitive. Actions there carry higher risks. Ukraine frames its operations as defensive and lawful. Russia frames them as attacks on its territory. This difference in framing matters globally. It influences public opinion, media narratives, and diplomatic language. Meanwhile, sanctions remain in place. Economic pressure affects long-term sustainability. Maintaining defenses, repairs, and deployments cost money. Over time, this strain adds up. Russia still has significant resources, but priorities compete. Multiple fronts demand attention. Crimea is one of them. Ukraine aims to keep it that way, by forcing Russia to invest heavily just to hold position. This is strategic attrition, not rapid conquest. Analysts caution against assuming quick outcomes. Wars rarely move in straight lines. Gains and losses fluctuate. What matters is trend, and the trend shows increased contestation around Crimea, not resolution. Yet, military analysts emphasize logistics as the true battlefield. Crimea relies on supply lines, bridges, sea routes, air transport. Any disruption here complicates defense. The Kerch Bridge remains a focal point. Past attacks highlighted vulnerability. Even when traffic resumes, security measures slow movement. This affects timing, fuel delivery, equipment rotation. Ukraine targets these pressure points indirectly, not always destroying them, but forcing constant protection. Russia responds with redundancy, alternative routes, increased escorts. This back and forth defines modern warfare, less about territory, more about systems. Crimea's value makes it a priority, but priorities can become burdens. The more resources committed to holding one area, the fewer available elsewhere. This creates strategic trade-offs. Ukraine hopes to exploit this. Russia aims to absorb it. Who succeeds depends on capacity and adaptability. So far, both sides adjust quickly. That suggests a prolonged struggle, not an imminent collapse, but also not stability. Crimea sits in between, contested, pressured, watched closely by the world. Information warfare plays a major role in shaping perception. Social media amplifies claims. Videos circulate rapidly. Context is often missing. Both sides use messaging to influence audiences. Ukraine highlights successful strikes. Russia emphasizes interceptions and continuity. Viewers must remain cautious. Not every clip reflects strategic reality. Analysts rely on patterns, frequency, target types, response changes. These indicators suggest increased Ukrainian reach and increased Russian defensive posture. Neither side openly signals weakness. That is expected. War narratives aim to sustain support, internally and externally. This makes independent analysis essential. When experts speak of Russia possibly losing control, they usually mean degrees, not sudden withdrawal. Control exists on a spectrum: administrative, military, psychological. Crimea remains under Russian administration. Military presence remains strong, but psychological and logistical pressure has increased. That is the shift. Whether it grows depends on future operations and international support. Information warfare will intensify as stakes rise. Viewers should focus on verified assessments, not emotional headlines. Looking ahead, several scenarios are possible. The first is containment. Russia absorbs pressure and maintains control through reinforcements. The second is gradual erosion, where holding Crimea becomes increasingly costly. The third is negotiation impact, where pressure influences future talks. None of these happen quickly. Ukraine's strategy suggests patience, sustained operations, limited risk. Russia's strategy suggests defense in depth, strong responses, controlled messaging. Both approaches reflect experience gained over years of conflict. Crimea's future will not be decided by one event. It will be shaped by cumulative effects: economic strain, military fatigue, political will, external support. Observers should watch logistics, frequency of attacks, and redeployment patterns. These reveal more than statements. For now, the tide appears more contested than before. But tides can ebb and flow. The coming months matter, especially as technology evolves and alliances adjust. Public discussion often seeks clear answers. Winning, losing, control gained, control lost. Reality is more complex. Crimea is under pressure, but pressure is not defeat. Ukraine has demonstrated reach through drones, missiles, and intelligence-driven strikes. Russia has demonstrated resilience through layered defenses, rapid repairs, and forced redeployment. This balance defines the current phase of the conflict. Overstating either side misleads audiences and distorts understanding. Responsible analysis acknowledges uncertainty and avoids emotional conclusions. What is clear is change. Crimea is no longer static. It is dynamic and contested. Actions there influence wider strategy across the Black Sea region. They affect morale, diplomacy, and resource allocation. That alone marks a meaningful shift. However, shifts are not endings. They are signals. Whether this pressure becomes decisive depends on duration, consistency, and external support. Logistics remain central. So does political will. Military outcomes often hinge on endurance rather than spectacle. Viewers should approach updates with patience and context. Short clips rarely show full consequences. Verified patterns matter more than isolated events. Crimea's story is still unfolding. Each operation adds information. Each response reshapes options. Analysts therefore focus on trends, not headlines. The coming period will test systems, leadership, and public resolve on all sides. Conclusions should remain provisional, grounded in evidence, and open to revision as conditions evolve. Time will clarify remaining uncertainties. In conclusion, the debate is not simply about victory or defeat. It is about pressure, response, and sustainability. Ukraine has increased its ability to challenge Russian positions in Crimea through precision and persistence. These actions aim to stretch defenses rather than force immediate change. Russia, meanwhile, continues to prioritize Crimea as a strategic asset. Reinforcements, air defenses, and rapid repairs show commitment to holding control. This interaction defines the present moment. Crimea remains under Russian administration, but it faces greater strain than in previous phases of the war. Strain influences decisions. Decisions shape future outcomes. History shows that prolonged pressure can alter strategic realities over time, but only when paired with resources and resolve. No single strike or statement determines the future. Instead, cumulative effects matter most. Economic costs, military fatigue, public morale, and international support all play roles. Observers should resist simple narratives. Complex conflicts demand careful interpretation. As conditions evolve, assessments must adapt. What appears stable today may shift tomorrow. What seems decisive may fade. Our role is to track verified developments and understand broader patterns. The situation in Crimea will continue to evolve in stages. It deserves attention grounded in evidence, not exaggeration. We will keep following credible sources and expert analysis to explain what changes, why it matters, and what it could mean going forward. If you found this breakdown useful, like the video. Subscribe for clear and factual war analysis, and share your thoughts respectfully in the comments.